Everybody, welcome to the Just Plus Scott Plus You show. For this show, I'm really excited for a lot of different reasons, and the first reason I'm excited happens to be right now. I've got this thing, okay? I've been carrying this around with me, and I just took it out of the wrapper today. If you know what it is, I'm really extremely proud of you. It's this little cylinder. It's about the size of a half of a pencil. It's about the width around. It looks like the diameter is about the size of a nickel. And on one side it has a light. It is indeed a flashlight. But on the other side, it is a USB charged flashlight. And you can also charge this up. And if you are at a conference all day and you're on your phone and you're doing all your texting and whatever that is, and your phone runs out, this is an extra battery charge that will get you some more juice in your phone until you can find an actual plug to do the charging. Why does that matter tonight? And what does it have to do with hi? What's your name again? The gist is providing value. The gist is making something available from you to the people that you're talking with so they have a reason to remember you. And the filters that they are using to categorize you in their brain associate you with something fun and unique and different. And maybe that makes them like you a little bit easier, but maybe not. Dawson is going to be here to talk to us about that. So right after our open, we will get to meet him. See you in a minute.
Okay, Jess, take it away. It's all yours.
You know, I always dance when I listen to our open and our close. It makes me excited, and it pumps up the energy just a little bit so we can get this conversation going and have it roll right along. Scott, what do you think about this? Have you ever seen one of these before?
I've seen similar things, but not exactly like that. So I think that's pretty terrific, Jess.
I think it's really cool. It's a little heavy, so I don't travel with it, but I will take it to conferences with me. It's very neat that way. Hey, Joel, have you ever seen anything like this? Do you have one of these?
I've never seen that before. I have no idea what it is. I've seen something like that before during combat. It's shaped just like that, but the only thing is maybe like a block of wood or steel or something just to make the fist, and it sticks out on both sides. It looks exactly like that, but that's what I had no idea what that was.
Oh, and you know what? Now I remember who told me about it. Shout out to Sue Zimmerman. She's the one who was giving these out at, what was it, social media camp Victoria last year, and so I got to meet her, and she gave me one of these. So it's been hanging out with me for a year now, and it's great. Joel, I am so glad you are here tonight. I mean, hi, what's your name again?
Hi, Joel Dawson, not Joel, Joel.
It took me a little bit to learn that, that's for sure. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, like she said, my name is Joel Dawson. I'm a speaker and a trainer specializing in nonverbal communication. I created this sales system called Mastery of the 93%. All communications between human beings is done verbally and nonverbally. 7% of the communications that you're seeing right now is actually the words that's coming out of my mouth. The other 93% is based on my facial expressions, hand gestures, body movement. That encompasses the 93%. So today, or tonight, in my case, we're going to be covering that. And I understand that there's a lot of questions, so I'm ready whenever you guys are.
That is awesome. Thank you for that. So mastery of the 93%. And you know, when we think about that, the first time I really remember hearing about this, I think I was in middle school, and we were talking about nonverbal communication, and we were talking about ways, and I don't remember if this was when I was considering doing debate. Scott, did you ever do debate in school?
Oh, I did a smidge of, yes, I did debate in school, and it was one of those wonderful moments.
And I think that's now. Okay? Then my next question is: do you use anything from that training that you learned today, like for our show or any show that you do?
Absolutely, but as is the case with all of the best education that's out there, you learn something and then you absorb it. It becomes part of your DNA, and then you're like a fish in water. You don't even realize what you're doing. But there are certain logical constructs, and there's certain ways of thinking about life when you have the logic of debate. Does that help?
I think it does. And
Yeah.
so, Joelle, when did you decide you wanted to really focus in and harness the opportunities that come from mastering the 93%?
About a year ago, well, maybe about a year and a half ago, I got involved in this organization, started working on my public speaking because I wanted to do seminars for my business. And I got involved in public speaking as a competition. So I started studying a lot of the professional speakers. And in my research, I found that a lot of them really focused on the nonverbal aspect of it, but more importantly, how they use that to do two things. Number one, to relay their message to an audience, number one, and number two was to actually keep the audience engaged. So that was a real big one with me. So that's what really got me started in really focusing on that to see the many opportunities that it will provide.
So let's talk about, I know when we were preparing for this show, Joelle, you talked about a first impression, but then there's the first impression. Now, everybody who is watching, this is the Just Plus Scott Plus You show, and we are talking to Joelle Dawson, and the topic of our show for the Me First series is, hi, what's your name again? And this is going to explain the title.
Okay, here we go. If I would ask you, what does it take to make a good first impression, what would you say?
Oh, it depends. I would say some of it's generational, but things that I've heard before. Scott, I want you to jump in too. Make sure you're wearing makeup when you go out, right? That's for a girl. Make sure you're groomed. Eye contact. What else? What else, Scott?
Okay, well, first of all, I was going to say eye contact. And then secondly, it's that the internal, what I believe is that there's an internal atmosphere that a person has and that it kind of shines out. So if you're in a grumpy mood, then that's going to occur. And other people just seem to be charismatic all the time. And so I would say it's the internal atmosphere. And I'd be interested to hear Joel's opinion on that.
Well, Scott, you're actually right. When it comes to the first impression, and this is the way I like to explain it, there's a first impression, which is, what a lot of people think about, that happens on a conscious level, the makeup, the dressing and things like that. And those are all great answers, except there's only one problem. You're too late. Because that's not the way unconsciously we as human beings make decisions as far as who we like and who we don't like. Now, I know most people say, oh, don't judge me. I don't like to be judged. But it's human instinct. We have to judge. We have most people. I'm sorry?
I said I love that. We do
Right.
judge. We
Yes,
do
we
judge.
do.
And when we embrace that, we can use that to our advantage.
Exactly. And we're going to get to that part later when we talk about using nonverbal communication in a business sense. But what happens is when you see someone that you've never seen before, most human beings are indifferent, which means they neither like nor dislike. But certain people will raise a certain way. That you can't help. But we're curious. So what happens is, if you remember Predator. It's Predator, right? Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He comes down to Earth and he sees these human beings and he scans them, right? And he can tell if that person's hostile or not. Well, we as human beings, we do the exact same thing, but only a different way. But that's how we decide if we like a person or not. Whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, it really doesn't matter. Once that decision is made, then our brain will automatically gather evidence to support that decision. That is the first impression. The first impression is the one that's being made unconsciously. So,
What do you think about that, Scott?
Yeah. So my question of you, Joel, is that all of a sudden there is this archetype, there is this impression that a person has. On a scale of 1 to 10, A, how accurate is that impression usually? And then B, how hard is it to change once you've decided a person in that split second, however long it takes? How long does it take to change an opinion about a person away from the first impression?
You can make, once your brain makes the decision, that can happen in a tenth of a second. Just think about how many times you've seen someone that you've never seen before, and all of a sudden you say, I don't like them. I don't like them. It's just something about them. It's in my gut. It's not in your gut. And to answer your question, how accurate, is very accurate, because this is why. We as human beings, we receive information through our senses by what we hear, what we see, what we smell, what we taste, and what we touch. In a situation like this, it's narrowed down to two: what we see and what we hear. When your verbal communication and your nonverbal communication doesn't match, it sends conflicting signals to the brain. And when that happens, that's where the confusion comes from. And when there's confusion in the brain, that causes you not to trust that person. So how accurate it is? Very accurate. How long does it take to overcome it? Well, that's where the old saying goes, it takes a long time to, how does it say, to make it takes a long time to undo a bad impression, of however it goes. Because what happens is your brain has already decided that, let's just say you don't like a person, number one. Number two, it automatically gathers evidence to support that you don't like that person. So in order for you to overcome that, you really have to focus on getting to know that person to change your own natural mindset.
So we're telling ourselves a story, and in that story, when we've made that decision, we naturally are filtering all of the sensory input, all of the information we're getting to support the story we have made.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why I'm so happy I'm no longer a teenager.
I know, right?
Because just imagine going up and trying to make a good impression on the father of the girl that you're going out on a date with. You're nervous,
Exactly.
all of that, and you just know that you've already got 2 strikes against you.
Right.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, I'm glad I'm not a teenager for a lot of other reasons. But
Exactly.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that, Scott. Well, so when we think about the first impression and how, I know so we've got to have this level of comfort. And when we're talking about comfort, and when we meet somebody and we've made that decision, when that scan is occurring, are we comfortable?
Who, the one being scanned or the one?
Yeah, the one doing the scanning. So me, when I first met you, my brain is going through this scan. Can I be comfortable with you in that moment that my brain is doing its thing on autopilot that I have no control over?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's factor in something called proxemics. Proxemics is a study of distance.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 basic distances. Now, in a setting like this, because you're in Seattle and I'm in Louisiana, there's no possible way that you can feel threatened by me at all. But if you and I were in the same room, and to a certain level, it's different for everybody, but the premise is still the same. You have an intimate distance. An intimate distance is from touching to 18 inches. That's an intimate distance. Now, to ask, would you feel threatened or feel comfort if you don't know me and I don't know you? If I was in that distance, you would naturally feel uncomfortable. Anybody would.
Can I give you a story about that? One of our lost shows of JSY featured one of my friends, Eric Isaacson, and the way I met Eric was I'm sitting at this conference and I'm sitting in this seminar, and there's this guy. He's huge. He's really huge. He's got some amazing, outrageous hair and amazing, and typically some facial hair that's also pretty amazing and unruly. And he's sitting next to me with his camera, and he's got his camera turned down like this, and he's going right up at my face. Click, 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 and I'm click, click, click. So we're like shoulder to shoulder. I have nowhere to go because there's somebody on the other side of me, and there's this man going click, 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 click. So that would be somebody in my first proximity I've never met before. Not quite sure what to do with him. Yeah, I get that.
So how did you feel?
Strong impression.
He made a really strong. Well, first I was offended, and I was like, well, why wouldn't you say hello and introduce yourself before you take pictures of a stranger, right? This is really what's going through my brain. And then I was like, oh, now I'm really curious. He must want to talk to me about something. He must have heard me say something that he liked enough that he's taking my picture. I don't know. So I let it go. And then I walked up to him and I was like, after the session, I was like, would you show me the pictures you took of me? And he goes, you knew I was taking pictures of you? And I was like, uh-huh. Weird. Anyway,
yeah.
So, but I would say if it wasn't me, or if I wasn't in a situation where I was comfortable in the environment, minus this one person, I would have been very uncomfortable. Like sitting in a restaurant with a friend, and that was the only person I knew, and here came this person, click, 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 next to you. I think I would feel a little weird.
Right. So if you were in a restaurant with a friend and your friend was that close, you wouldn't feel threatened, anxious at all. No. But with another person, you would.
Yes.
It's not about the distance. The reason that you feel threatened, anxious, or whatever with the other guy is because you don't have that intimate relationship. Whereas with your friend, if they were standing that close, they can touch you. That doesn't bother you. It's not actually the distance. It's the relationship that you have with that person. That's why.
We're going to come back to relationship then. I'm making a note. Every time I turn my head, Joelle figured it out. I'm right.
Okay. Do you want me to continue?
Keep going.
Okay. So that's an intimate distance. Then you have a personal distance. A personal distance is from 18 inches to about 4 feet. At this distance is where a lot of the communications happen with just your friends, or even talking to a stranger in that distance. Okay, and you can, before you would feel anxious or anything like that. For example, if you walked up and shook someone's hand, you stick your hand out and I stick my hand out, that's going to be about, maybe 3 to 4 inches, so you're comfortable with that. Okay, but that's normally where that scan comes in at that you were talking about. The like the predator comes, because now this person is in a personal distance from you. Now, like I said before, depending if you may have grown up in Chicago where the population is real dense, or you grew up in a place like, I don't know, Montana, where there's a lot of space, it's going to be a little different, because if you grew up in a place where the population is really packed, you may be used to more people in your space, so to speak. But generally speaking, that's where a lot of the communication between human beings come from, in that area, in the personal area. Then you have your social area. Your social area is from 4 to 12 feet. Now, from 4 to 12 feet, you're not going to feel threatened. You can look at someone, and if that person piques your curiosity, you can still look at them and say, it may be something about them, but you can still, you will still say, well, do I like that person? Do I not like that person? There's another one, but I'm not going to mention it on the air. But there's 3 things that people actually decide when they're looking at somebody. One is, whether I like this person or not. Well, I guess I might as well go ahead and mention it since I said it. The second one is if I do not like this person or not. And the third one, now mind you, this all goes on back here. You don't say this to anybody else.
This is lizard brain. Yeah.
Right. Would I sleep with this person?
Mm-hmm.
Those are decisions that we do make. Mm-hmm. So the person really doesn't have to be close to you for you to make that decision, because, like I said, we as human beings, we're very curious. So that's what we do. Then you have your social distance. Your social distance is from 12 feet to like 25 feet, and after that, it doesn't matter. Okay, you're not going to feel threatened at all. But in those distances, you can tell how the closer you get to someone, the more important the relationship is.
Okay, so going back then to relationship, if we're in a room together, and by the way, everybody who's watching, this is the Jess plus Scott plus you show. We are having our show today about the topic of nonverbal communication, and we're talking about, hi, what's your name again? Because our brain is on autopilot, and it creates some interference in that very first few seconds of interaction when we're typically shaking hands or hugging or whatever and learning each other's names. So Joel Dawson is with us tonight, and we are starting to explore the idea of relationship now that we've gone through it. The word is proxemics, right, Joel?
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about each of the different types of proxemics, and now we're going to talk about relationship. To be able to have a relationship, which means to be able to have a conversation and have it be productive and have it be something that both parties will take something away with, even if it's just a good impression. Oh, that's a cool person. Oh, they had a really neat story. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to do business together. Maybe this person might only end up being my friend. Maybe it was neat to talk to them, and that was that. Or who knows, right? Anywhere in between on that spectrum. So let's go back to relationship. How can you tell when we're in actual physical proximity, so not in this environment, but in an actual physical proximity, that somebody's starting to get comfortable with us?
You can tell by their body language.
Okay.
If I didn't know you and you felt threatened or uncomfortable by me, you're naturally, because that's the way you're thinking, your body language is going to naturally put out signals. You may cross your arms, you may step back, which happens a lot. Eyes may flutter a lot, but for the most part, you're going to step back because you're going to subconsciously create that distance to where you are comfortable.
Okay. And some of that's body language in terms of comfort level, but that could also be personality a little bit too, I think. And
Right.
And I guess personality goes to what is our general feeling of safety in the whole idea of proxemics. So there's wow, we could probably have a whole show just talking about that.
Right. See,
Okay.
another thing that people will do if somebody steps in your space, and everybody's seen this where you got this one person or you meet somebody and they like to stand really, really close to you while they're talking, and you're like, exactly, just like that. And like I said before, it's not necessarily about the distance, because he doesn't have or she doesn't have that relationship with you to be standing to you that close. So you either step back, or you would turn to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the telltale sign right here. This which is, trust me, this is a total different topic. But when you keep this part of your body open meaning there's nothing in front of you, arms aren't crossed or anything like that, but mentally it gives you a little sense of ease. If you're not belly to belly with somebody, even though they're standing close to you, you may, just stand to the side, something like that. That almost gives you like a breath of fresh air. But the problem with that is if they're standing too close to you, we're talking about a business sense, you're not going to really be, receptive of his ideas or anything, because he's already in your space and you don't like it.
Interesting. Okay, that actually, I have a mentor. His name is Al Lynch, and he used to use that phrase, let's get belly to belly.
Okay.
Not with me, but in general about doing business and some of that stuff. You've got to be in a place of comfort. A place of being able to be receptive. So when so we can look sideways, face forward, some things like that. If somebody keeps backing away, what is that? Because we know it's somebody. Let's say we did all of our research beforehand. We know who's going to be at this networking event, and we want to meet somebody and start talking with somebody that's really important to one of our goals. And we just want to have the connection. We're not trying to sell anything. We're not trying to do a deal right there. We're trying to open the door and have a conversation. What are your tips around that in terms of, is that the right way to go? How can I get this person whom I've never met to actually remember my name and start building that relationship, that likability, that trust in that time that we have together, which might be 1 minute, it could be 5 minutes, but in a group setting like that, it's probably not very long.
Okay, here we go. That's the $1 million question, and now we're about to get down to the nitty-gritty. Networking events. In order for you to create what I call the perfect first impression, is first of all, you have to control your mindset. Meaning that if you're going to a networking event and everybody's in a good mood, you want to be in a good mood before you get there. Because if it's just like a paparazzi. If you watch these movie stars walk around, they got, people hiding in the bushes taking pictures and cameras and things like that. Well, human beings are the same way, not necessarily taking pictures, but you never know who's watching you. So remember, your body language and your facial expressions are nothing more than a direct result of the emotions that you feel inside. You won't be able to get into an argument with somebody or get frustrated because someone cut you off in traffic and then go to a networking event and think that you're hiding it from somebody, because remember what I said before, 93% of all communication is done non-verbally. So if you're frustrated on the inside, but you're smiling, you're going to send mixed signals, which means before you even speak to anybody, people can already sense that and they're not going to trust you. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're not giving off any type of body language that that says that they should not trust you, or should be read the wrong way. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now we're getting there. We're at the event right now. Now some people are not as outgoing as other people. They go to their networking. Obviously, it's not you. It's not you. But they may go to a networking event and they may have a friend, or they go by themselves. Now they have the intention of meeting this guy or whoever. There's this connection that they really, really want to make. But if they're nervous, remember what we said before. What's the best thing to do for them to feel comfortable? They may stand off. They may put that distance between them, and that's not what you want to do. Because if you put that much distance between you, then you're giving off that signal that you're being guarded. You're being subconsciously guarded. So if you distance yourself by going and standing in a corner or something like that, nobody is going to come approach you unless someone not necessarily feel sorry for you, but they want to know you or they want to make you feel comfortable. But just knowing people in the room, they're going to ignore you because that's honestly what you want. So you don't want to do that. You want to get up in there. Now, you don't want to put off any type of body language that says that you're being guarded, which means you don't want to walk around with your arms like this being folded or anywhere covering this area. Remember, you want to keep this part of your body open. Okay? Now, if you go to a networking event, you haven't given off any signals for them not to trust you, which means that you're not guarded. Handshake time. So you walk up to them, yeah, just like that. Do that again. I don't know if they can see you now, but that was pretty cool. Don't do that again. Don't do that again. Okay. So when you walk up to someone and you want to introduce yourself to them, it's two things. Number one, when you stick your hand out, you shake their hand. Remember if you want a good handshake, let's talk about a good handshake. A good handshake has nothing to do with the pressure. Some people say, well, you want a nice firm grip and stuff like that. That's conscious. We know we're doing that. Okay. People that squeeze your hand really, really hard, normally those are the people that are, over the top. I don't want to say overbearing, but that's a perfect word for it. The people that give you the limp fish, they normally have some type of, esteem issues. When you stick your hand out and someone grabs your hand to shake your hand, you introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Dewell Dawson. Okay, when this person grabs your hand, if the webbing and your fingers are touching, that means that they're receptive to you. They'll listen to you. They'll talk to you. You can start. That's a good starting point. But if they grab your hand and the webbing is not touching, they're still kind of standoffish from it. So you have a lot of rapport building to do before you do anything because they're necessarily not comfortable with you. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So you definitely want to keep that in mind. So when you shake the hand, regardless of if it's a good handshake or not, and you start talking to them and they've never seen you before, for example, if you tap them on the shoulder or you just walk up to them while they're talking to someone else, you stick your hand out and you shake everybody's hand, when you realize that, okay, now I know this person's not that receptive of me. You introduce yourself, you start talking to them. They're scanning you right now. You've already said your name. If I were to turn around and walk right out right now, let's say I robbed the bank or something, well, maybe that's a bad idea. But if I would just turn and walk out and somebody say, hey, did you see that guy? You can tell, hey, he looked like this. He was this tall. He bald head. He's got a suit on. You can say all of those things. What's his name? I don't know. Why? It's because, remember we said 93% of all of the communication is happening, through the body language. That means that the 7%, those words coming out of your mouth, they're really not paying attention to it because they're too focused on, looking at you, trying to decide whether I like this person or not. But, you know, when I'm coaching, I tell people that. So you have to know that. And here's the thing. You don't know that person's name either, because subconsciously you can't control it. Subconsciously, you're doing the exact same thing. Because if they say their name and you're going through the conversation and everybody knows 10 seconds later, you don't know his name, he doesn't know your name. So don't feel bad about it. You don't know each other's name. You go on with the conversation, but once you decide that you like that person or vice versa, you know, and I always tell them, you know, say your name again at the end of the conversation. Then, if he likes you, if that person likes you, then they'll remember your name.
Very cool.
Or if they really don't like you, they'll remember your name too.
Right, exactly. And this is the example that I always use. I can walk up to you right now, just like, and say, you know, hi, my name is so and so. And what's his name? You're gonna say, I don't know. I don't remember his name. Okay. Now think about this when maybe you were in school during that dating time, right? And you see that guy or that girl across the room, you say, wow, who is that over there? And they tell you her name, whatever. You go over there and meet them, they say, what's your name? And they tell your name. Do you ever forget that name? No, you never forget that name. Why? Because you had already decided before you met her or him that you liked them already.
Yep. Yep. I think that's brilliant. And, you know, that's one of those things where, and we're going to tie it back to the supreme unselfishness, putting yourself first, taking the time to know who you are, taking the time to prepare what needs to be prepared to be able to be in a place of receptiveness and openness really makes a difference to have a good first impression, to allow people's scans to have the right impression of you and make those filtering decisions. Now, how does that apply to what we're doing online? Because being in Louisiana, being in Washington State, we have the connections and we have our ways to remember each other. And I know, Joelle, you and I first talked on the phone. We didn't actually even do this first. We talked on the phone first, and then we had our first hangout. But how can we take some of those things, knowing that there's more sales done online, there's more relationship building done online, and we can reach farther and have more specific connections? How can we take all the stuff that we just talked about in an actual physical networking event and apply it to this digital interaction to make lasting impressions and to have that level of comfort so that we can build rapport a lot easier to something mutually beneficial between both people?
Two ways. Okay. Now remember, when you're meeting someone, whether it's in person or in a situation like this, the same thing still applies. Because like I said before, if you just remember when your son was going, mommy, 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 yeah. And you're like, what? How? You can't do that, because if you've got your hair standing on ends, and you come here and you try to play, it's not going to work. So even though I can see you, I can see your body language. I don't have to be in the same room with you to see that you're smiling, but that smile is not, something's not jiving.
Got it.
And that's all it takes. In a situation like this, with a lot of commerce happening via video, whether it be webinars, whether it be hangouts or anything like that, there's another aspect to it, and that other aspect is the audience engagement. And remember, we talked about that at the beginning of the show. This is what I see a lot of when I look at videos. I see people that it's normally real tight or something like this, regardless of the yes, like that, just like that. Not saying that's a bad thing for you. Not saying that. But you remember, people receive information through their senses. In a setting like this, it's normally narrowed down to two: what we see and what we hear. Now, the people that are watching me right now, some of you are paying more attention to what I say, the words that are coming out of my mouth. Some of you are paying more attention to what you see. It's like a hole. You got this hole and you got these two pegs. Both of these pegs will go into this hole, but one has to go in before the other. Just a little bit before one has to go in before the other, and then they're both fit. Well, that's the way information is in our brain. That's the way we receive information in our brain. So if you're doing a video, regardless of what it is, whether it's live or maybe it's being recorded for something, you have to use your body language because and a lot of people don't know if they're more visual or if they're more auditory. But you have to take into consideration that whoever you're talking to through that camera, one of them is, well, some of them are more auditory, some of them are more visual. So it's very important that you incorporate both. Because if you don't, and you just think that, well, since they see me right now, and you just stand here and do this, if that person's visual, he's going to disengage from you and turn off the video. On
Totally,
the same
totally right. And one of the things that you're saying, backing up, because this is something, and I know, you're probably going to talk about this because of your background and expertise, but there's this power box, and if I'm in front of a group, that power box is shoulder to shoulder and basically clavicle to belly button. Well, even standing this far back, you can't see my whole power space. So even if I'm up here, I have to consciously raise my arms higher to be able to bring in the visual aspect and the way that I talk with my hands a little higher when I'm on video than when I am in person.
Right, exactly. So you want to make sure that you're in a position where you use a lot of hand gestures, you use a lot of facial expression, because that's telling the majority of whatever your message is. So you have to make sure that you do that. On the flip side, you have to make sure that people can hear you. Because if even though your hand gestures are great, and don't get me wrong, a lot of people spend a lot of money on the SEO, the keyword, they do all of that type of stuff, but if you can't hear them, you're going to tune them out. And a lot of shows that I see, they concentrate on engagement. Well, you have to make sure that that person engaged subconsciously, okay, by making sure that you're communicating through them through all of the senses possible, meaning your gestures, your vocal variety, all of that.
I'm going to repeat that. Communicate through all senses possible. And this is a good stopping point. We're going to do a transition to the shout about, and then when we come back, Joel is, excuse me, wow, I almost made it through the entire show, Joel.
Almost.
Wow. Oh, I'm still working on that, because in my brain I labeled you, and now I am unlabeling it, and this is actual application of that hard work.
Right.
So it was the first impression that it was Joel, and now you have to unlearn it. That's illustrating how important the first impression is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Whew. So the shout about, Scott, take us away.
Okay, here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine. 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah. I look into the sky with all the beautiful color, but there's more than just...
When you get frustrated, and you get so frustrated, and everybody goes into problem-solve mode to try and get rid of your frustration, well, that frustration is fuel, and that fuel means you're on the right path. How do I know that? Because every single day I get maybe a little inkling of frustration, but not in a way that sets me off or it overcomes and takes over the day, but it's the kind that goes, oh, I have a problem. Oh, I'm trying to figure this out. Oh, there's more to learn. Wow, how cool is that? That frustration means we're on the right path. And we know that because we know the why. We're okay. As when the frustration is okay and it feels like good frustration, that's when we know we're on the path of our why. And as long as we know our why, we're able to act. And even if we don't know our why, we're still going to act, because that's what we do every day. We get out of bed and we brush our teeth and we eat some food and we meet some people and we do some work. All those things are actions. When we know the why, we can actually go one step further and we can take action, which will allow the how to become possible. We make a decision. This is what I'm going to do. And everything else seems to fall in place when we are steadfast in every part, our mind and our heart and our body language all align. Why do we care about this? Really, who cares if we've got our why or not? Well, really, does it have to make sense to anybody else why we do what we do? No. It has to be exciting and intriguing and fun for us. That's what matters. It is our path. It is our journey. So the actions that we take are additive and supportive and in the service of others. And we're receiving along the way, because that's how that cycle works. We're ready to take on the world. And that action, that taking on the world one piece at a time, is what sets you apart. I'm Jess Dewell, and I work with company leadership who feel the pressure to perform and want to be so far ahead that you set the standard and the impact of your work reaches far beyond your company.
You want $1 million like you hit the pay dirt. Gonna smile from ear to ear, the kind that makes your face hurt. And we'll laugh, jump, sing loud, not afraid to shout about being happy, living it out. Take a look and see a
Beautiful morning. It's a beautiful day.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's really fun for me to do. And my sets
You're
always
kidding
change.
me. You're kidding.
Oh, yeah. I'm so not. I know, it's so hard. I have to really work at getting those done.
I can tell. That took a lot of work.
Yeah. So, okay, Joel. Oh, wow. Look at that. We were talking about it, and I got it in my brain all wrong. Joel Dawson is joining us. Hi. What's your name again? And we're talking about nonverbal communication. We're talking about that first impression. We're talking about what it takes to set up being able to have some sort of reciprocity in a relationship so we can be liked and we can like the people that we want to connect with to help get us where we're going in whatever capacity we might be looking for, whether that be dating or a friendship or a business relationship or who knows what. So, Joel, now that we've had that conversation, and man, this is really filled with a ton of information, this episode. So what would you leave us with? What would be one or two things that you want to make sure that ties everything together that we've talked about to this point?
The key to this is to realize that you have to control your state of mind. Because everything that we talked about, or the only thing that we've talked about, is what happens when your mood changes. Whether if you're a person that doesn't normally, speak to a lot of people, you're going to be more apprehensive. That's what you're thinking. But you have to be able to control that. It's very, and this is what I tell people when I coach them. You really, that's where it starts at. You really have to control your mindset, and that's where the positive mental attitude comes from. Because if you have a positive mental attitude from the time you walk out of your door, then your body language is going to be exactly where you want it to be. You don't have to try to hide anything and all that kind of stuff. So when you meet people on a day-to-day basis, like it seems like you're always in a good mood. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It seems like you're always in a good mood, which means that it's very easy for you. You say you're a hugger. It's very easy for you to hug people because they don't feel threatened by you.
Right.
Okay. Now, if I just got into a fight or somebody cut me off the road, I get out the car, I'm mad and everything. I just walk up to somebody and go to hug them. They're like, "What in the? Get away from me!" So it's very important to control your state of mind, especially if you're going to be doing business, because you don't want to be caught in a position where, you're trying to act a certain way, or you got to just be yourself. You really do. You really just have to be yourself and have fun with it, because if you have fun with it, you'll really enjoy it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Joel. And where can people connect with you? We want to make sure that everybody watching knows where can they get in touch with you and find out more about your work and see the content and goodies that you are creating and putting out into the world.
Mastery of the 93% is a 90-day nonverbal boot camp, and all my information can be found on LinkedIn. Look for me on LinkedIn at either Joel Dawson, J. Dawson Speaks, or if you just type in nonverbal communication, yours truly will pop up. There's a couple of videos there. There's a lot of information there. Have any questions, send me a line, and I'll be glad to respond to you.
Thank you, Joel, for joining us. This is the Jess plus Scott plus You Season 2, where we are talking about putting ourselves first, and that is the supreme unselfishness. This thoughtful conversation with Joel Dawson is just one example of the cool, amazing people that Scott and I are meeting and reaching out to, and that are reaching out to us, that when they have something to share about personal and business growth. We want to learn and hear what you have to share as well. So please take the time to share this out, to give this to somebody who you know can use the information right away, and definitely take the time to share your opinions and add to the conversation. We want to keep this going. Let's expand these ideas and work with each other to shift our mindsets into this positive place. Thank you to Scott from the Scott Treatment, where he works with businesses to capture the potential of the power of video through post-production editing. And I'm Jess Dewell, who works with business leadership, and I'm really, really good at listening to what is not said to look and discover possibilities of where the opportunities are. Let's connect at jessicadewell.com. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.